Today we're going to be covering copy mill, basically. So we're going to be, I believe, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got a 3-unit bridge, I think, or
Yep,
a bridge.
and yeah, and a single.
And a single, cool.
Yep.
So today we're going to be covering how do you, if you have a wax up, how do you just copy that exactly? So that's what we're going to be covering today. I do want to point out we are live on Facebook currently and live via Zoom. This is going to be recorded on both platforms, so you can either watch later on either Facebook or it will be on our website as well.
Yep.
Hope everybody had a cool and fun weekend. I know here in Kentucky we had some beautiful weather, and it was nice to get outside a little bit. Hope everybody else had a good weekend as well. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Evan. Evan's going to be taking us through the design today. So Evan, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, so what we had today, we're just going to go over the crown and bridge way of copying a wax up. And this can be applied to a single unit. We're going to show that, or multiple units, but basically anything that's going back onto preps. And this is primarily like if you would, wax it up, say you did like a presentation wax up, and you wanted to that got approved, you want to copy it into your zirconia design. And then for the single unit, probably not as common anymore, but that would have been something that would have been used a lot in the early days of CAD/CAM when it was, you could wax faster than you could design, or you could get a much better, as far as like anatomy, a better anatomical look than what you could do in the software, years ago. And then you could just copy it into zirconia, because obviously it's got to be digital to get to zirconia, unless you want to go and do manual milling, which I don't think anybody wants to do anymore. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right.
Sweet.
So starting out in 3-shape dental system, and of course, like all the other ones, this is going to be how it's done in 3-shape, but in ExoCAD, and I'm sure Dental Wings, there's probably a way to do this same kind of thing. So we're going to start with just a single, because the difference with the single is you can do it, all you need is the die and then the wax up. So I've got a little die and my wax up. Now this has actually been milled out of our Lifelike wax. The main reason for that is it has an ingredient, the same ingredient that makes it white, also makes it scannable. This would be something, ideally, if you're waxing this up by hand, you want to do it in a scannable wax. Otherwise, you're going to have to spray it, and that can just wash out some of the anatomy, and it's just an extra step. So for this, I'm just going to start a new order. And I'll pick the tooth, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to go into frame and then wax up. And then we'll pick zirconia for our material. Now you can do this in the model if you want, but you can also just say no antagonist and none, which will just be a die. Go to scan. And give me 1 second to get this on the right screen. Okay, and so you can see what we're going to do is we're going to scan the wax up on the die. Then we'll trim the wax up, then scan the die by itself, and then it's going to figure out the difference for us. So normally, let me get a plate. We'll see. We'll try it without putting anything on to hold the crown in place, but more than likely I'm going to have to put a little spot of something on there. So I'm just going to put that in. And it'll start scanning. Now it looks like we're a little too far forward on the plate there. Move this blue tack real quick. Again, so we want to be in the center, which I didn't do on the first one. So center of the plate, put it back on, and we'll just rescan.
Hmm. Very
So
cool.
there's the wax up. Now we can go ahead and trim it. And so here you can either do like a die cut or a straight line cut or selection mode. I'm actually going to use, now that they have the kind of impression trimming, I'm going to use that and follow it right along here. And so we've trimmed it. Now we'll just go next. And now all we do, just take the crown off. I don't even take the die off the plate.
And actually, you want to make sure you actually don't move the die, because the system, the software is relying on the same, is relying on that die being in the exact same position as where the wax up was. So you want to make sure you don't move it, right?
We'll have to see. I think it may give you an alignment step, but I think it actually, yeah, in this case is relying on it being in the same spot. So it kind of already trimmed off some of the extra stuff, but we can trim the die as well. Just make it a little shorter. And so, yeah, it is actually relying on the same place. There used to be in the old software an alignment step, but in this case, there's not. So just make sure you don't move it on the plate, which shouldn't be hard, especially with a single wax up. If it comes off, you know, normally where you get dye lube and all that, then you should be fine.
Yeah.
Now these little red spots are where there were some holes and it's approximated it, but that's close enough, fine with me on that. So then we'll go into design. And from here, it's pretty much the same as any standard crown bridge until we actually merge the two. So I have a sculpt toolkit where I could sculpt on the model. Like if I know that is just a blemish, then I can smooth that away. Do an annotation. And we're going to fix this insertion direction. So I'm just going to rotate it where I can see my margin all the way around and hit set. And we'll go ahead and fix the green balls. So obviously it thinks that it's upside down. So we'll just go around and finish. So now we have a good insertion direction and it's going to virtually block out correctly. Check our margins. So this is another cool thing. Like you don't have to worry about how good the margins are on the wax up. Just need to make sure that it seats, and we're going to make the actual margin in the CAD software.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. And as long as you've got your margin or your die ditched, or at least have a sharp edge, it should find it pretty easily. Once you've moved the green balls, if you don't move the green balls, then it's going to be all over the place. And you'll have to fix it manually or go back. So now it's applied the die interface, and that's going to use the same settings that you set up in the control panel for your, in this case, the zircon material. But the cool thing I can do now is I'm basically, wherever I'm drawing this line is where I want it to ignore the wax up and use the CAD software to connect to the margin. So If we want to come a little lower to preserve our waxed up emergence profile, we just start moving that line.
Nice.
And if we like, we want to get rid of that blemish there. All right, so I just click check cut splines. It doesn't see any issues with it, which is good. So if we go next, then now one thing it's done is done a little bit of like a coping lip there. So let's go back and let's check this margin offset first.
Yep.
So the margin line offset was a little higher than it needed to be. So we'll just do that at 0.2. But the other thing to be aware of as far as that contour, that this was waxed up straight to the die, so you've got a nice sharp edge. You
Yep.
can't manufacture that in ZR. That's what this margin line offset's for, not that zirconia has to have a 0.2, millimeter thick margin. It needs that so that it doesn't chip while it's milling. You can finish it down beyond that afterwards. But so that's why we're getting a little bit of a weird look. Now we could do a couple things. We could bring this line up further, and then we're going to contour that emergence in the software in this step, or we could just fill it in here. So if I go into my sculpt toolkit, get my add tool, then I can come in and just make that a little bigger first. Almost like we're sealing the margin. And then I'm going to come back and smooth it so that we get a uniform emergence. But we got to fill it in just a bit first.
If you try to mill that razor thin margin, there'd be chips all over it. Probably.
Yeah. Yep. Without a doubt.
Nice.
Yep. And if you wanted to, you could go real light on the smooth tool just to
Smooth out some of the texture.
Yeah, smooth out the texture and go over it quick. Now they do, let's see if they still have it here, a general smoothing. If you go into your, sorry, my webcam's like right in front of this, that's why I keep looking around it. In contacts and smoothing, they have a smoothing all over the surface. If you just keep clicking that, it's a general surface smoothing. It's not quite as aggressive as the smooth tool, but I would probably still hit it just lightly with this. Maybe in a spot. So right here, you can see, like I said, this was milled, and it's actually milled like 20 minutes ago, so I didn't have a lot of time to remove the support. That's what you're seeing right there. This is what was left of that. See. So again, you can like make some little tweaks to your wax up once it's in the software. So you don't have to be super precise. Now, if you're going to do it this way, full contour with just the die, you want to make sure all your contacts and everything are where you want them, or at least heavy enough that you can adjust them afterwards and they won't be open. And then of course, avoid too much of messing around with them in the software. Now, if we'd done it on the full model, then you could, cut to the adjacent and that kind of stuff, just like you can if you do the whole thing. The whole design in the software. So that's copying a single unit. Same process can be applied to like a coping, say that, with a facial cutback or something like that, where you've waxed in the anatomy and you want that exact kind of stuff. And the other reason people use it too is, and even like maybe if you're just now going digital in your crown and bridge, especially if you're doctors, if you have like a anatomy that you wax that they really like, it's probably not going to match close to one of the ones that's in one of the libraries that's available digitally. And you could either make your own library, which is kind of cumbersome, but if they really wanted, that specific doctor really wants that anatomy, then you could still wax it up and scan it in and then give them that same anatomy in zirconia. So we're gonna close
Nice.
that.
That was super easy.
Any questions on just a single unit?
Let's take a look. Don't see any questions in the Q&A. Let me check Facebook here. Give me one sec. No, I don't see.
All right. It was a pretty straightforward process, so.
Yeah, I don't see any questions so far.
All right.
If you guys do have any questions, feel free to answer. Feel free to ask either on Facebook or here in if you're watching in Zoom. Feel free to ask away.
Yep. And so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and move on to how to do this with like a larger wax up, bridge. And again, this is a 3-unit bridge, but this could be applied to a full arch. Put this back in.
Man, I don't know about you, but my allergies have really flared up this week.
Yeah, I'm one of the fortunate ones that don't really have any allergies.
Oh man, lucky.
So I usually skate by on that.
Yeah.
Which typically fairly odd for being in the Ohio Valley area.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just getting some blue tack off of this. So we'll go back into the order form. And in this case, we're going to do frame, wax up, and then we're going to bridge it. And I'm going to go ahead and leave all the defaults on. Let's say we want to check our occlusion. So we'll have an opposing model. It is section. So I'm just going to leave that the way it is.
So it's worth noting you didn't pick the center unit, right?
Yeah, you don't need to put a ponic in because all we're doing in this is we're going to be telling it, hey, here's where where we want to section it and connect it to the margins.
Yeah. Cool.
And we'll go back into scanning. And you can see down here, it considers this all to be frame bridges because it's in the framework section. But again, it can be full contour, even the pictures, it shows our full contour. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. And when we get to the actual wax up right here, so I'm just skipping forward to show you, but by default, it's wanting to use one of the 3 shapes accessories, the wax up bridge scanning fixture. You can see it on the screen, but here in my hand, basically what it is like a spring-loaded little fence. These filaments, now this is like one from years ago, are like an orangey red color, which wouldn't get picked up on the red laser scanners. I think these newer ones can actually see it a little bit, but you can clean that up. But the concept with this is that you're gonna place it in, and then it will sandwich that in and hold it up because it's going to scan the front or occlusal side, and then also it has to get the ponic side, not so much the internal, but just the tissue side of the ponic, and then it'll marry those 2 together. Now, this has been around for, like I said, I mean, it's probably around since close to the beginning of 3Shape. No, definitely since I've been working with it, which was 2013.
Probably don't want to know how much those fixtures cost.
Yeah, they're in the ballpark of about, I think 5.5. I'd have to look. Don't quote me on that, but it's pricey.
Yeah.
I mean, even to that note, this was one that our engineers tried to make at one point, but it's not that good. We didn't really go down that route very far. But they have in the newer software introduced the option of scanning on blue tack, which you can see down here. This didn't used to be an option, but now it is. It might have had to do with some changes to the scanner hardware, just being able to see something that low or the scan algorithms. But now you don't have to buy this. If you don't want to, you can do it on the blue tack. And we'll show both ways just so you can see the difference. But I'm gonna go back to the beginning. The first thing you gotta do is actually scan the model with the wax up on it. So we're gonna go ahead and just put it on like that. Put it on our plate. And put it in the scanner. Oh, looky there, sales. It's 560. Thanks, Chris. So
5,
I'm betting that they don't
60.
sell many of those anymore.
Yeah, probably not. It's a little,
I don't know how
little
many they sold to begin with,
pricey.
but yeah. So this is the same as just any regular scan. We're going to highlight where we want to scan. I'm going to go and get the whole arch. Now you could, in this case, where it's just the wax up area, just highlight the wax up because we do have a step where it's going to be the whole arch. So actually, let's go ahead and remove what's not. We'll do it the way they show on the picture. Yeah, honestly, Chris said, yeah, we don't sell many. I don't think we've sold one since 2013 when I started, unless it was a package deal with the scanner, like when they sometimes used to package accessories.
Yeah.
But
especially now that they added the scan on blue tack. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't buy one, to be honest.
yeah, now that you have that option, there's not really much reason to have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oops, let's back up. I did the wrong side. All right, so rescan. So in this workflow, we don't have to worry about accidentally moving the model because what we're doing right here is the alignment scan. So just trim that real quick. Now we're gonna do the lower jaw. I'm not gonna worry, or I'm not gonna take it out, but I just pulled the bridge off. So this works just like any of our other scans. Although I just realized this is a solid model on this side. So we're gonna exit out here real quick, make one adjustment to the order form. So I'm just gonna right click modify. And we're just gonna change the working model or neighborhood to unsectioned and go back to scanning. Okay. So it won't let us do that. I'm just gonna trick it. So make sure when you do it, you've got a section model, at least if you're doing a bridge. Gonna get the whole arch for my working model. All right, go ahead and trim this as well. So we can see it's already successfully aligned the bridge or the alignment scan. So now go ahead and take the model out.
Now, what kind of wax are you using? Because I noticed you're not spraying it.
Yeah, so this is our Vericore Lifelike presentation milling wax, and one of the active or the ingredients in it that makes it white is also what's used in scan spray. So I think it's a titanium dioxide.
Nice. So you don't have
And
to spray it
so,
at all. Zero.
nope. Yep.
Nice.
All right. So if we're going to do it with the wax up bridge fixture, then we're just going to put this in like that. You can see right now what it has the occlusion. It's kind of a little hard to see in the picture, but the occlusion's facing me.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put that in. And go ahead and click next. All right. So now if we want, if there's any missing areas, more importantly on the ponic, then we can take a look at that if we want to do a supplementary scan. But this actually, that looks good. So that's a nice thing about this is it can do it all at once.
That is nice. No trimming or aligning or anything.
Yeah, so
That's
like
pretty sweet.
the trimming is mainly, you can see here if we did it on blue tack.
Yep.
So if you were doing this a lot, it would probably be worth picking up the fixture. But if it's only an occasional thing, then the blue tack part would probably be fine. So now we have to align it. So that works like anything else. So it's aligned. But let's go ahead and back up here. So you see how easy it is with the fixture. You just put it in and go. But let's go back to scan. I'm gonna set it back to unscan. And what we're gonna do is do a blue tack just so you can see that process.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna check the box for blue tack. Get the bridge out of here. And I'm gonna make a little adjustment to how this blue tack is on this plate. So you probably want to use about the least amount of blue tack that you can to hold it in place, just so that you got less to actually trim. We're just gonna put it on. And they show the lingual going into the scanner. So I've just pressed it into the blue tack right there. And we'll put it in. Gotta stop it real quick. I had a little oopsie, the plate came off. Make sure that's on there right, and then we'll restart the scan. All right, so we have a nice scan there, but we are gonna have to trim this. So we're gonna come to trim. If you had like all of this sunk into blue tack, you could just do a plain cut, but what I'm gonna do again is the line mode, and I'm gonna cut it anywhere Like I don't want to include anything that either the scanner is approximating or so the like bottoms of these connectors or any of the blue tack, obviously. Because we'll get all this in the next scan.
Just want to make sure we keep all the good data.
Yeah. All right, so that's good. So then we're going to do the supplementary scan, which is we didn't have to do the last time. We're just going to flip this bridge over on the plate, press it in. I'm pressing it by the ponic. And again, this if you're using a softer wax, again, this is probably not the route you're going to want to go because you got to press it into the blue tack. That would be another scenario where the actual fixture over here is going to be better because it's not putting hardly any pressure on that bridge. But if you're pressing, a normal wax in, on or into that blue tack, you're probably going to distort your bridge. Milling wax has a lot more actual like resin in it that helps it raise the melting point so that it can mill without gumming up, but it also makes it more rigid. So I mean, and this could be a thing where you might also mill something out of PMMA and make some adjustments, and you want to get your adjustments back in. This would be a route to go, and then pushing it in to blue tack would be fine in that case. All right, so now we have the underside. I'm gonna trim it.
Nice.
And I'm gonna be a little less precise with this. Just making sure I've got, and they added an undo button for that exact reason. But just making sure I've got all the underside. And again, the quality of like the internal is not super important because we are going to be, it's going to be automatically adjusting that. So the little funky thing there. Must be something about the triangle mesh there that doesn't like. So that looks good. So then we align the bridge scans. So we're looking for common places. So let's go to the top of that little spot there, and that'd be a little iffy. Let's see. Yeah, I got it. So you're looking for that good marbling between the scans to show a good alignment. And we'll go next. And it's now merged them together. And we'll align to the preparation. Still has the dot on this one from the last time. And we'll just click. So it's not totally, a lot more complicated to do it without the fixture, but if you're doing it a lot or doing it from soft wax, then you're definitely going to want the fixture. Now we're going to go ahead and do the upper.
So from here, it's really just business as usual, right?
Yeah, the only thing that I'm going to have to do because I don't have actual section dies is I'm going to have to trick it into basically just for each one of those position the model so that prep is in the center and then
just trim it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Tell you what, those are some nice margins.
Yeah.
I wish they were all like that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and admit this is a teaching typodont, so this is not. Yeah. All right, so go ahead and do the occlusal scan. And instead of rubber band, I'm just going to stick a little blue tack on this. All right, so we'll just jump to alignment results. So it failed on the, well, it looks like both arches. So that's one of the downsides to putting blue tack on it, is it can throw it off, but sometimes it's just quicker for a rubber band, or quicker than a rubber band. All right. So now we're gonna go about tricking it. So got it sitting on there like that. Let's see if that's gonna work. Trim, and now that they got the line tool here, that's gonna make this really convenient.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to do a whole bunch of different plane cuts and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's pretty nice.
And there you go, trick the die.
That's one of the nice things about 3Shape is, even though like people like to compare it to ExoCAD and say like, well, ExoCAD just gives you a lot more options and is a lot more open. But in reality, there's a lot of ways that you can trick 3Shape into doing what you want. It takes time to learn, and
Yeah.
it usually takes a little bit of research or, asking in a Facebook group or something. But usually, if there's something you need to do,
Yeah.
there's
Usually
typically
if
a way
there's a
to do
will,
it.
there's a way.
Yep.
All right, so that one, let's do a adaptive scan.
Now, why did the scan quality on that one turn out so poor? Why do you think?
Probably because it's being blocked by this adjacent tooth. There we go. So we'll go back and get this area. See what that gives us.
Still no questions. You're doing a really good job, Evan.
Yeah, we'll see if we can finish tricking this.
Yeah, I think it'll work.
Do one last little spot there.
Ooh, yep, just a little spot.
Now, the other option that I probably could have done is die and model scanning. I'll have to check and see if I think that's probably turned off right now.
Yep.
Yeah, scan dies and
Scan
models
dies and model.
supported. So all of the newer scanners that have the 28 lines will allow you to scan the die and the model, so you don't have to take it out. Now, I will say that the E4 and the D1000 are going to give you a little bit better detail, or the D2000, because they have 4 cameras, whereas the E1, 2, and 3 only have 2. But what that'll do is just scan the model and really pay attention to looking for around these areas for undercuts, and use a couple different approaches. And then you section it in the actual design software. So that's another thing. Rather than trying to trick it like this, what I could have done is just turn that on. But we've already done this, so.
More than one way to skin a cat.
Yep.
You know, I kind of want to know where that phrase came from.
Yeah.
Who was skinning that many cats
That they had to make a phrase
realize
for
that
it.
there's more than one way to do it?
Don't know.
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yeah.
It's kind of
You could probably make
interesting.
a TV show on where all these phrases come from, especially the
probably
ones
could.
that you got to do like a double take on. Like,
You know, that's a pretty darn good idea.
I'm
That'd be a
patenting
good
that.
that'd be a good TV show. Do like 2 phrases per episode if it's like a half an hour episode, and talk about
Yeah.
where the phrases came from.
Yeah, it'd be like how it's made, but where phrases come from,
That could be pretty
how they got their
entertaining.
origins.
Yeah. That could be fun. It couldn't be on cable though. It'd have to be like on a streaming service.
Definitely. All right, so from here, I just adjusted that occlusal plane. Not a big deal unless you're going to use the articulator, or if these were going to be like printed models, which, so here we have our 2 section dies. If we needed to, we could fix annotations, but they're fine. And so that insertion looks fine to me. I don't see any issues with the green balls. Go ahead and fix any margin issues. It's a little bit low there.
Overall, 3Shape does a really good job when you have a somewhat defined margin.
Yeah, if you've got a good defined margin, it's
pretty good at detecting it. That's if.
Yeah. All right. So we can apply our die interface, which should be the cement gaps and things like that. And repeat that. All right, so the difference here is that we have to do 2 cutout lines. And let's see if we can, so you can see right now it's having me do 20. And we're just going to do the same thing we did on the single. I'm gonna go a little bit higher this time. Of course, stay out of your contact unless, in this case, because we have the model, we can adjust that. That's probably good. So then here we can have this where it says active cut spline. I can just click the arrow. That'll take me to one of the other teeth in the bridge. All right, I'm good with that. So check cut spline, no issues. Let's go next. And you can see it has attached it. And then we can go into sculpt. I'm gonna go in and do some smoothing. I'm gonna turn the sculpt tool down a little bit just because 2 is super aggressive, as you can see. So, but it is handy in some places, especially like on models and stuff.
Yep.
Just come in and smooth that out. And this could also be helpful for people who are like, again, starting, into the CAD CAM area, and they're still learning individual units, but they, obviously you still got bridges and stuff probably that need to go out. And rather than trying to, probably drive yourself insane immediately jumping into multiple units, then you could still wax it up by hand, because you'd probably would still be, quicker at that point
Yeah.
at doing it by hand. Then just, do your little tweaks you need to do to it. And then get it milling, and then you're not, it can happen a lot of times. People get overwhelmed if they, or haven't fully learned just the software for one unit, and then they're trying to do a 6-unit bridge.
Yeah.
And so instead
That's
of
a pretty
causing
good
that kind of
idea.
a pain point, wax it up like you typically do, then scan it in and do it digital from there. But then all you're doing is just, smoothing things up and attaching it to the margin. And then once you're comfortable with all the tools on one unit and everything's coming out the way you want, with into single units where you're not touching them really after once you're back in the analog world, then start doing your bridges just start to finish in CAD.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that, using this as a training mechanism.
Yeah.
Pretty good idea.
And all the other reasons that I mentioned on the single still apply to a bridge like this, but and so here it is. So this is another thing to be aware of, since when you're waxing something by hand, you don't have the virtual block out that's needed for like milling or the drill compensation. There could be a case where you've waxed this, like say to the minimum thickness in an area, and then when it puts that drill compensation in, it's going to say, well, we're below by 100 microns. And you could either go back and, fix that area. So let's say no and just see where it is if I turn on that minimum thickness. So it's right here on the facial. So I could either use the morphing tool and just bring that out a little bit. Or if it's, a really small spot and in an insignificant area as far as, load forces and stuff like that, then you could probably ignore it. And that is how you do a bridge, wax up bridge.
Nice.
See if there's any questions.
That's even the bridge is really, I mean, it's not
easy.
Yeah, it's not hard at all. I mean, sounds like it might be complicated on, on his face, but it's really not. It's pretty sweet.
No.
Let's check and see if we have any comments, questions, concerns. Okay, no, and we check on Facebook. Let's see. I don't see anything on Facebook either. No questions. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks, Evan. Let's see.
Yep.
What do we have? What do we have coming up on Wednesday? Do you know?
Yeah. So Wednesday, I believe, is going to be implant. Let's go here. Go to whitmix.com and on training. Let's see. Yep. So copy mill advanced. So it looks like we're going to be, screw retained, how to convert either a waxed up screw chain bridge, or also it's say either you had a denture that you wanted to like a denture provisional, and you want to convert that into something that can be put on tie bases, or you have even just the provisional that's had adjustments made to it, and you want to get that back in for zirconia. It's going to follow a very similar concept, but we'll talk about the differences because you do have to have some additional equipment. Well, not equipment related to like the scanner, but for the models.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Cool. Yep. Awesome. Well, again, to everybody watching, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Again, this is all recorded, so you can either go back and watch on Facebook, or you can also watch on our website. In the meantime, I hope everybody has an awesome week, and a productive week. And I hope everybody joins us on Wednesday for the Copy Mill Advanced. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks.